Okay, recording has started and I am going to start sharing my screen now. Okay, so we're going to start talking about renovations and basically you as realtors learning how to sell the vision when you need to. This is not going to be the end all be all loan for all borrowers, but it is a great solution based program um, that is great to have in your back pocket to offer up to buyers. So, what is a renovation loan? It allows a buyer to buy a house that's in less than ideal condition. It doesn't have to be a gutted house. It doesn't have to be a foreclosure. It can be a house that's only a year old, newly constructed, and the buyer just wants to purchase that property and put some customized, fine-tuned fixtures into the house, like upgrading the cabinetry. So it is available both on purchase and refinance. And what happens with this loan is that we will take the contract sales price, the purchase price, and add on top of that the cost to renovate the property after closing. So the secret sauce to all of these loans is the fact that we're not looking at as is value. We're looking at as repaired value. So the appraiser will take the contract and the bid from the contractor that the buyer has chosen and marry those two and look for comps that are similar to what the house is going to look like. So that again really is a secret sauce. Because if a buyer were to go to get a home equity line to do those same renovations after closing, they are likely not going to have sufficient equity since they just purchased the house to get a home equity line of credit. So this is the only program out there that really goes on an ARV. So that is, again, the secret sauce. So these renovation loans are available on an FHA loan, and I think that's mostly the program that most people are familiar with from Google or YouTube or whatever the case may be. But they are also available with conventional and VA loans. It is one rate, one loan, one closing, and all renovations do happen. Again, I said this already, but after closing. So nothing happens pre-closing. The seller doesn't have to make any repairs. The buyer is not making repairs to a house they don't own yet. Everything happens once the buyer has closed on the property and they own it. Um, the other nice thing about this is if there's any major health and safety items that come up during inspections or appraisal, you could flip your buyer or your listing to a 203K or a conventional renovation loan and fix any health and safety items after closing or have the buyer fix them after closing. So that would include mold, failed well and septic, leaky roof, for FHA, peeling paint, that sort of thing. So it's really important to remember to sell the vision, not what it is right now, but what it could be in the future, and help the buyer see that. It's a great opportunity for buyers that are having a hard time finding a house that's turnkey to maybe find a house that's not turnkey, one that everybody else is overlooking, make an offer and find a house quicker. So we're going to go over the renovation mortgage types. I'm going to go into a lot of detail on the FHA 203K, home style, which is the Fannie Mae version of the 203K, and the Choice Reno, which is Freddie Mac's version, are both modeled after the FHA 203K. And the VA alteration and repair renovation loan is also modeled after FHA. So we're going to start with explaining the FHA 203K loan. There are two different tracks that a buyer can choose to go. One is the standard and one is the limited. So the standard 203K, again, for purchase or rehab or refi, the buyer can use this for either types of transactions. It is for obviously a primary residence only because it's an FHA loan. These do take an average of 45 to 60 days to close, and they will follow your maximum loan limits for the county that you're selling it. We can utilize the renovation loan on properties that are 1 to 4 units, manufactured homes, condos that are FHA approved condos, mixed use properties in some cases. So that's where commercial is on the first floor and the top two floors a, uh, might be a residential where the buyer is going to live. Um, those are all the properties that it's available on. The big thing with FHA is it can't be a new construction house. Remember when I said you can use this on a new construction that's over a year old? So the COO on a new construction has to have been issued a year previous to the case number. So it's not for a brand new construction. And when I say the COO, that's not the same COO that you guys have in New Jersey. It's the one that they got when they constructed the house. There is no cap on eligible repairs as long as the property is going to meet the after repair value. So the after repair value is going to really drive how much the buyer can finance in renovations. There is a small caveat as far as what's eligible for renovation. It's just about anything. FHA does specify that they do not allow luxury items to be financed. However, their luxury items list is very tiny, so don't get too twisted about it. But the FHA will not allow a buyer to install a new pool, an outdoor kitchen, outdoor gazebo, which is weird, an outdoor hot tub if it's not permanently part of a pool. Like you can't install those things. You can repair a pool, you just can't install a pool. On the FHA 203K standard, there is a requirement that the buyer hire an independent FHA 203K consultant. These are inspectors that are certified by HUD through a class and test process. They do review like resumes, insurance, and all kinds of requirements that FHA has. But that consultant is going to actually act very similar to a home inspector for the buyer. That consultant will go to the property, inspect the house with the buyer present after contract is written, and they will develop a scope of work that shows the required FHA repairs. They will also outline the desired repairs by the buyer. So let's say the buyer is purchasing a house that has peeling paint, broken floorboards on a deck, cracked plaster, a leaky roof. Well, those would all be FHA required repairs. But the buyer also says to the consultant while they're doing their inspection, hey, I'd also like to update the kitchen and the bathrooms. So that consultant will then write all of that down, inspect the property, take pictures. They then go back to their office, develop a 20-page report, itemizing out labor and material costs of what it should cost a contractor to do the work and provide it to the buyer. So that's their first role. That's inspector. Their second role is the estimating part. So they will use the market estimating software that they are given to approximate what a contractor's bid should be. Now, are they always 100% accurate? Like, no, they're usually within 10 to 20% of what a contractor is going to come in at. They usually do actually guesstimate a little bit high just to give a little cushion. But ultimately, what will happen is they will provide the buyer with that report and a blank bid on repair book so that the buyer can turn around and then go get a contractor's bid for the work that they'd like to do. That bid then comes back into that inspector and to the consultant, and they will reconcile the contractor's numbers against the consultant's numbers, and ultimately we are only financing actually what the contractor is charging. But they are a checks and balances, so to speak, to make sure that a contractor is not either over or under bidding a job substantially so that the buyer isn't short cash for renovations post-closing. So again, that kind of happens in the same time frame as a home inspection. Now, the 203K Limited is the light version of the standard. So this is a program that FHA says if you are doing less than $66,000 worth of repairs and have no structural repairs or work being done to the house, you can actually forego the use of a consultant. I personally think that consultant, especially in New Jersey, you guys have some great consultants up there. The New Jersey, PA area, you are well, you've got a lot of people up there that you can lean in on that are good inspectors. But if the borrower is already has their contractor and they don't feel the need to bring a consultant in, they don't have to. It's optional for them. Typically, if they already have their contractor all lined up and ready to go when they write a contract of sale, we can usually close these a little bit quicker, just because we don't have to have the whole inspection process to go through. So the big differences between the standard and the limited is, again, limited 203K is non-structural and less than, it's 75,000, but I'm going to tell you that the contractor's bid can't exceed 66,000. And the reason that is that I'm going to explain in a couple of slides. We finance more than just the raw bid from the contractor. We want to make sure that we've got permits covered and inspections and some other things. So I'm going to go over those item by item for you. The standard 203K with the consultant does require that there be at least $5,000 worth of work, and there is no maximum. The nice thing with the limited 203K is that the contractor can get a 50% draw at closing, and then be paid the remaining funds when they complete the job. As for the standard 203K, that's actually done in progress inspections where the consultant goes out and we pay work out as work is completed. So let's say they go in and demo the house and install new windows. Well, the consultant then goes out and we will pay out on demo and installing the new windows. And that's how it would progress throughout the whole project. So progress inspections versus 50% upfront is the difference between the two. A really nice thing to know for your clients is that if they are doing a standard 203K and the house is not inhabitable during construction, they can finance up to 12 months of mortgage payments. I know, it's crazy. Now, I'm going to say that that's not a free-for-all, and it's not a vacation from the mortgage. It's actually based on how long the consultant deems the house uninhabitable. So FHA's expectation is that once that house is habitable, that the borrower move in. So if we financed 12 months and in 6 months the house is habitable, those 6 months remaining payments that haven't been used would go back to the principal balance of the loan, and it's the expectation that the buyer move in. So there are a ton of viral YouTube, Snapchat, TikTok videos out there where people are talking about this, and it's a little reckless because it sets people up with the expectation that they don't have to make a mortgage payment for 12 months. So I just wanted to be really clear in our class that we're disseminating to you the actual information. In all of these loans, the borrower always has to hire a contractor. So even if they're a licensed contractor on their own, FHA will not allow them to do the work themselves. And there is a very long explanation that I will not bore you with. If you have one that comes up that the owner is a GC or the buyer is a GC, I strongly encourage you not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Get that buyer on a call with me and Dana, and we can walk them through why it's not allowed and give them some recommendations on how to still perhaps use this loan as an option for financing. So that 203K consultant does cost money, and it is financed into the loan. So these are the fees that HUD has set that the consultant can charge. They cannot charge more for that unless it's for mileage.
You should start reading your giver.
What's
right?
that?
You're already caught up.
Can everybody make sure they're muted? Unless you're asking a question. So the financed fees are based on the amount of repairs that the contractor's bid is. So these, again, are all financed. They're paid up front, but the buyer gets it back as a credit at closing towards their closing costs since it was financed. So what goes into our finance renovation? In this pretty much applies across all of the renovation loans with a few exceptions for some fees. But so this would apply also to conventional and VA. So we're going to finance not just the renovation bid amount from the contractor, we're also going to finance a contingency reserve because we're all in the real estate business. We've all owned houses. We've all probably renovated houses, and we all know that renovation projects are never perfect. So the contingency reserve is what I call their slush fund. It's between 10 and 20% of the bid from the contractor. So if there's $100,000 bid, we're doing a 10,000 between 10 and $20,000 contingency reserve financed. That's to cover the borrower in the event of a cost overrun that occurs post-closing due to unforeseen repairs, opening up a wall, finding termite damage, that sort of thing, or a cost overrun due to changes in material costs. So that contingency reserve, if not used by the buyer and the contractor during construction, would go back to the principal balance of the loan. We're also going to finance those progress inspections that are made by the consultant. So we typically start, FHA allows us to finance 5 of those, and so we'll finance 5 draw inspections and pay the consultant out for their inspections out of the loan proceeds. We will also finance a title update. If the buyer needed to hire an architect or a structural engineer, we can finance those those fees in. We will also finance the cost of the permits, the HUD consultant fee. As I mentioned, the financed mortgage payments if the house is uninhabitable. And there is a supplemental origination fee that HUD mandates as 1.5% of the draw account that gets financed in as well. The one thing that I skipped over was the partial discount points. If the buyer is paying discount points, and a lot of them do have to pay them these days, we can finance a portion of those into the loan as well. So we basically have taken everything that we can identify early on before closing and financed it into the escrow account, so the buyer doesn't have to hopefully kind of come out of pocket due to cost overruns or permit fees, etc. Okay, Dana, do we have any questions yet? Okay, I'm going to keep going. So the home style renovation loan is our next loan program that we wanted to go over. And this applies to both the home style, which is Fannie Mae's version, and the Choice Reno, which is Freddie Mac's version. So they're both identical. The home style loans are perfect for buyers that are conventionally qualified. They've got a strong credit score, that debt to income ratio is within line. If just because you've got a conventional buyer and they need to go reno doesn't mean they necessarily have to switch to an FHA loan. We've got this. It is modeled after the 203K. The first time home buyers program, we can do 3% down, and we can couple this with the Home Ready income limit program that gives buyers reduced mortgage insurance payments. So anybody that's bought a house previously or it's not home ready, that would be 5% down. These are available on investor loans, investor properties, so at 15% down, and second homes at 10% down. This is the program, honestly, that if your buyer wants to install a pool, they can install the pool. So that luxury item limitation that we talked about on FHA does not apply to conventional. As long as the improvement is permanently affixed to the house, we are able to include that in the financed renovation. The draw process follows the same on a home style renovation as it does on an FHA. One of the differences is on this loan, we do actually allow the contractor to get a 50% material draw. So that's a flexible part of the home style renovation. And plus on top of the going conventional, you don't have to necessarily worry about the peeling paint or like the handrails, the things that FHA picks at. Now, VA, this is a great program for veterans. So, and sometimes veterans have a hard time getting sellers to accept their offers because the sellers don't want to make VA repairs. Well, with the VA renovation program, the veteran can make those renovation or repairs that VA calls for on an appraisal after closing with this loan. It is capped at $50,000 in renovations, and there are absolutely no structural repairs on this at all. VA is very specific about that. So this is really for the peeling paints, replacing an HVAC system, remediating mold, like the little things that the seller's not going to want to do. I do have buyers, I see them updating kitchens or a bath, but it's hard to do that for 50,000. Um, not all of that, I should say. But we can certainly try to meet the veteran at their need, at their where they need it to be, and help them get into the house. So basically, the seller doesn't have to make any repairs. As with any VA loan, the seller can pay all of the closing costs for the veteran if that's negotiated. And it hopefully, again, will help take that VA objection off the table for a seller and take the unknown of that VA appraisal off of the plate of negotiation. So how it's going to work, and I'll kind of go through this quickly for you guys because I've got some marketing tips and tricks for you for both buyers agents and listing agents. But I do want you to have an understanding for the process because it does feel and look different when you're going through the loan process as a realtor and as a buyer. So you're going to start with Dana, obviously. He's your boots on the ground guy. The buyer is going to get pre-approved. Let's say you and the buyer are out looking and you identify a property that the buyer really likes, but it's not going to fly FHA, or they would like to update a kitchen. It's in the right area, but it's perhaps, just not up to the condition that they would like it to be in. That's when Dana would loop me in. We would do a group conference call and we would review with the buyer the loan program that we're going to offer them. We will run through numbers with them and we pre-approve them for the maximum of the purchase plus the renovations. So we want to make sure that we give them, okay, so if you're pre-approved for 450, that means you can buy a house for 400, maybe do $50,000 worth of work. You can buy a house for 300 and do $100,000 worth of work. You can cut that pie up, but we need to make sure that the buyer understands that they can't go, if they're pre-approved with Dana for 450 and they're at the top of their debt to income ratio qualifying place, we want to make sure that they don't go to 500 and aren't qualified. So we would get them all pre-approved and pre-qualified. Once they've identified the exact property they'd like to make an offer on, you would then write the contract as is. Typically, we do recommend that it's as is, and note in the financing addendum sections that it says renovation financing, so the seller is aware that we're getting renovation financing. Ideally, we want 45 to 60 days to close on these. If it is a six-figure renovation budget, I'm going to recommend 60 because it takes time for those buyers to actually finalize scope of work. And it's really the bid process that lengthens this. It's not that the loan process is any longer, other than the fact that we're waiting on a final scope of work from a contractor. And six-figure budgets oftentimes include a lot of trades that need to be brought in, subcontractors, to bid out the job so we can have it as close as possible. And that's really contractor driven. Once they've written a contract, again, 45 to 60 days, as is, and identifying renovation financing and the financing addendum in the contract. Your local loan officer would then alert the renovation department to the fact that we've got a contract. We would do another call with the buyer, going over the next steps once the contract is ratified, and we will make loan application. So basically, all the pre-qual side, you're really mostly still talking to Dana. I am happy to come in on a conversation when a buyer is just thinking about a renovation loan or they've identified a specific property. Even if they don't get it, I feel that having those conversations and calls with both you and your buyers, knowledge is power. And, the buyer could hear like what they've got to do and say, you know what, I'm not really up for that. Or, you could think of this, I want the buyers to have the knowledge. So it never hurts to have a call. There's never a wasted phone call. But once that contract is ratified, it does come into the renovation department. We take the loan application, we send it out, and the buyer signs. At that point, the buyer, if it's a 203K, would be scheduling the consultant to come out to the property. If it's not a 203K, it's a conventional or perhaps it's a limited, the buyer then needs to be scheduling a contractor to come out to the property to provide bids for the work that they'd like to finance. We will, at that point, my department will then be working on submitting the loan to underwriting. The processor does all of the credit documents, verifications of employment, assets, credit inquiry letters, all that stuff. While the credit processing is being done, the buyer is finalizing the scope of work and their contractor's choice. So essentially, we split these loans up into two separate little paths. We've got credit, and then we've got property, because we can't order the appraisal until the buyer actually finalizes scope of work. Once the buyer sends us the final bid, and if it's a consultant, the consultant will review and finalize their report. We get that sent to us. We send it out to signature for everybody, and we start a contractor's validation process. That process is really simple. That's the least of our worries. I will be 100% honest with you. It's the scope of work takes the longest time. So the lender then orders the appraisal, and once that is back in, we're usually about 5 days from closing at tops. We've got to submit it back to underwriting. That's a 2-day turnaround. Once that's clear to close, we send that over to the closing department. Oftentimes we've already sent the initial CD out once we've gotten the appraisal and the title work in, and the loan goes to settlement. Once the closing date occurs, the buyer now owns the home. They can move in if the house is habitable. We will establish a rehabilitation or a renovation escrow account in our accounting department, and renovations then start. The renovations do need to begin within 30 days of closing. Oh, and that says completed within 6 months. That recently changed and I missed that. I apologize. Work on a 203K needs to be finished within 12 months of closing, and on a conventional renovation within 15 months of closing. So they just expanded those for the larger projects. So as realtors, I'm going to recommend to, just know what the pitfalls are. The borrower cannot act as their own general contractor. If you've got your own contractors that you're referring to your clients, just make sure that they've got a contractor's license. We do need to have the contractor's bid itemized out with labor and material, which is something that our department really massages the contractor through if we need to. But I always say to the buyer, if you are pre-qualified as a renovation, want to go that way, start shopping before you even found a house for a potential contractor. Start getting names from family, friends, coworkers. The realtors are welcome to give names out. Dana might have some local names of people. So start kind of sourcing contractors early on. That will avoid any delays. That's the biggest, as I had said before, that's usually our biggest delay, is getting a final scope of work from the contractor. Your role in the reno loan is a little bit different, as you can see by the whole process. You're going to be going to this house and letting the borrower into the house to do the inspection with the 203K consultant. You will probably be going out and letting contractors in to bid out the job. So it is a little bit more work on the upfront for you guys. But ultimately, I always tell the buyers, you're able to turn this house into what you want it to be rather than what it is right now. And hopefully it'll help you as a realtor help buyers find houses faster. So again, selling the vision for listing agents. So basically, this is where I'm going to share with you that some tips and tricks that I've picked up from my listing agents over the past 30 some years, and my buyer's agents over the past 30 some years. I've always taught this as a CE class at the Board of Realtors here in Baltimore. So I've picked up ideas from them and I've kind of expanded on them for you to share with you so that as listing agent, you can use maybe some of these marketing ideas to sell a house that may need a renovation loan. So think about your listings that are either estate sales, REOs, as is handyman special, needs to TLC, any of your listings that you may have listed as cash only. Renovation loans are a great option for you to open up your buyer pool to more people to look at it, because this is basically allowing a buyer to come in and renovate the house and fix all of the issues post closing, and the seller doesn't have to make any repairs. So this would remove concerns about inspection repairs coming up. So as far as marketing goes, um, something that I have done in the past with my listing agents is putting a vision board in the property for open houses or showings, or we do caravans down in Maryland. Um, there's also a great staging tool that I'm going to show you that's renovation staging that is national that I think is pretty cool. And I'll show you that website when we get to that slide. You could also have your seller do a preliminary feasibility study. So the feasibility study costs $375. You could actually ask a consultant to come out to the property and give you a seller's feasibility study that then Dana can put together marketing flyers with financing examples for you to put at the property or in maybe the multiple list, but to show the buyer, to give them the idea of what the cash would be and what the payment would be and what the renovations could potentially cost. So that is one idea. This is the vision board. This is a little bit, I have to say, a little bit 2000s, because the virtual staging is pretty cool, and really would take the place of it. But this is a tool that I've used for years. It's just a cabinet front, a countertop, a backsplash with brochures and flyers that we would put in my listing agents' properties. Again, we did this on caravans and neighborhood tours. And one of the things that we did on the neighborhood tours when it was facilitated by like a local neighborhood association, I would actually go to the property and talk to the buyers and walk them through the property with ideas and explain the renovation program. So there's all kinds of cool ideas you can use as a listing agent for marketing. Now, virtual renovation is, of course, the 2020s version of a vision board. Again, I know that was a little bit dated, and this is really pretty cost effective. I believe it was $70 per photo. This is the website. I can send this to you all, or actually Dana, I will be sending this to you as the follow-up email. So I'll send this to you in a link. They are located in DC, but it is virtual. So they can actually take a property and virtually renovate it for you. So I actually tapped one of my friends that's a realtor and asked them to be a guinea pig. So this is a property that was listed in Annapolis, and it had been sitting on the market for 4 months. And as soon as I called Carolyn, my friend that's a realtor, I said, "Hey, give me a call about Golfers Ridge." And she said, "I knew you'd call me about Golfers Ridge." So it was a great house. It's a great neighborhood. It was just super dated and nobody was biting on it. So we actually sent over the before pictures. This is what the current pictures were on the multiple list, and sent them to the company. And this is what they did for virtual staging. She then used these in the property, and actually with these actual slides right here, she put them on the multiple list to show the buyers and the agents what some ideas were. And we actually put together a scope of work with a seller's feasibility study and put together financing flyers. So it really does help give that buyer that doesn't have vision. So those are the 3 slides. Dana has these. And then of course we do also have open house financing flyers that we can show the renovation numbers for potential purchasers. Another great tool would be sign writers. These are available. I think I got mine on Vistaprint like years and years and years ago. Some of the boards of realtors actually do offer them. But these are something that you could consider too as a sign writer that, it's acknowledging, hey, this house is great for a renovation loan. So as far as buyer's agents go, it's still probably a very competitive market if I'm not mistaken. The key with some of your buyers, or I would recommend is, go back and look at the houses that maybe they turned down because of the condition, or look for aged listings. Because if the house has been on the market, it's either price or condition or location, I would assume. It's usually the three things that keep a house on the market. Find a house that maybe needs to have a little bit of love, and potentially look at that for your client. It would allow you to basically maybe back down the sales price for the search criteria and open them up to more ideas. Because they can take a 2-bedroom and turn it into a 4-bedroom. They can build an addition. We can finance ADUs or in-law suites or au pair suites. They need to build a home office over the garage, or maybe they want to add a detached garage or an attached garage. They can do all of that with these renovation loans, except for the VA, that's structural. But, for the most part, we could, if the buyer's finding the house in the right neighborhood, but it's just not offering them exactly what they need, potentially the renovation loan would do that. So some marketing techniques that some of my agents have used in the past have been direct mail to targeted neighborhoods. Like they've identified the neighborhood they want into, and they've just reached out to owners in that area. Or you could look at expired listings. You could also search. One that I didn't talk about is the HUD Home Store. So HUD REO properties on HUD Home Store are available for renovation, and it's only $100 down. So that would be a good idea too. So it just, hopefully this will maybe get some juices flowing for buyers that you're having a tough time finding a house for. Last but not least, again, I said this at the very beginning, renovation loans aren't going to be for everybody, but they are definitely your ultimate problem solver. So think of them for a deal rescue. So if you have a home inspection that goes bad, if you have an appraisal that comes in low or subject to appraisals or repairs, we can oftentimes flip this into a renovation loan. Those appraisals that come in low, there are times that I literally recommend to the buyer, update the kitchen cabinets, the countertop, and paint the house, and you might get more value. I had that happen. I'll use an actual scenario. We had an agent of one of our loan officers in town. His daughter was purchasing. It was a foreclosure. She was just going in doing the bare minimum. She actually started as a renovation loan, but she was going in doing mold remediation, some termite repair, termite treatment. It was like nothing really value added. Maybe roof repair or replacement. But the house was really tired. It was foreclosure. Well, it came in about $20,000 under value. So I went back to the borrower's father, who was the realtor. I said, hey, why don't you go have them update the kitchen with exactly what I said to you, update the kitchen countertop, paint the cabinets, paint the whole house, and update the bathroom vanities and fixtures. And let's see if we can get a better value, because all of the comps showed that they all had updated fixtures and they were selling for significantly higher. So we had an underappraised value, 20,000 under. They brought me back an additional bid. They added about $15,000, $20,000 worth of work. The borrower's new appraisal came in and it was 30,000 over, because it was just that much of a delta. So when you looked at an updated house, the houses were just selling for so much more. So it was pretty crazy. It made him, as a realtor, he was like, I'm a believer. So I love the fact that we can always use these as a deal rescue. So the last thing you guys want to do as a listing agent or a buyer's agent is to go start all over. So certainly reach out if you've got a deal that's going south because of inspections, appraisal, or set repairs or anything like that. So Again, as think of it for your difficult to move houses, as is sales, estate sales, handyman specials, and for those buyers that really can't find the perfect fit house. And that wraps it up. So I'm going to stop sharing. I talked through that really fast. Um, does anybody have any questions or anything at all? Comments? Dana, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, just adding. First of all, thank you for going through that really valuable information. Not real well known in the real estate community as to how that works, and it can save deals for our realtor partners. Um, and then one of the common questions I get in New Jersey on this renovation from buyers and sometimes from realtors as well is, can you combine this with the New Jersey first time home buyer program? And you can't do that. So if we have a buyer that's in process on getting the down payment assistance, they can't also combine it with the renovation loan. So it would be kind of one or the other. We'd have to decide, what makes more sense for that buyer situation. So we'll work through that. But
Another really good point, Dana, and I'm glad you interjected that because I just thought about this. So in New Jersey, it's a little bit unique that there is a CO that needs to be gotten before closing and given to the title company. Correct? I'm a Marylander, so forgive me, guys. If the township will not pass the CO, oftentimes they'll give them, we close them all the time on a temp CO, and they have to do the repairs before they can move in. But the repairs are wrapped into the renovation program, loan program, and they will allow them to close on that temp CO. So don't let that be a limiting factor for you guys, because this is the perfect solution for a house that can't get a CO. Am I right?
yeah,
I think of it like Florida
yeah,
with their 4-point inspections.
yeah. That's we do get occasionally a deal gets held up because they're waiting on the seller to complete the CO repairs or whatever. So
So
that's a good tip, Heidi. Thanks.
sure. I see David Burris on.
Oh, hey there, Heidi. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I am
David's done
well.
these with me before.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I saw the invite from you guys come through, and I wanted to jump in because there's actually stuff that I was able to learn on the call here. Um,
Awesome.
we've done what's go ahead. Sorry.
No, good. No, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, we've done it before previously because I have clients that come to me on the reno side of things that are looking for financing for options, and we've done these ARV loans before. Um, for clients that are looking to do additions or looking to make improvements to the home and, figure out how they can get this done. I mean, I've never done it with you guys for a situation where I'm pursuing a property with a buyer and using it as a fix for a house that has a lot that comes up on the inspection. That seems like a really good tool that I'm learning about with you guys just today on the call. And then, also approaching the listing side of things for those ugly ducklings that, need a fresh coat and a lot of updates throughout. This is a great tool to kind of, to market the property with, and do some co-branding with you guys on. So those were two big takeaways for me. But for those of you guys who
Absolutely.
don't,
And
yeah,
absolutely check out that virtual renovation staging company. Is like what they did to that house was like, I just need you to take off the popcorn ceilings, get rid of the parquet floors, although they're gorgeous.
yeah,
That's a sin, but go ahead and take those off and update the kitchen, and stage it. And they did. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool. So,
yeah,
I mean, obviously, when you're marketing that on the multiple list, you have to be transparent and say this has been virtually renovated. But I loved putting
sure.
them side by side to give that whole spark of inspiration to the buyers, because I don't know that they've always got the imagination.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's true for most people on the renovation side of things. Our company, a lot of folks don't have the vision to see that. So I think having some sort of marketing, that you can provide when you do an open house, when you do, I guess for the MLS, you'd have to have specific information around what you're sharing and what you're posting, what the images look like and what they are. Um, but it's definitely helpful for people to see because a lot of people don't have the vision. That's one of the biggest things that we do some hand holding with clients on when we do renovations is, trying to help them see the thing at the end. And that's where our renderings come into play. Um,
Yes. And you've got
you
the
know,
unique ability to do that because you've got that side,
yeah, yeah,
that second business that has
yeah.
the construction part piece of things. So you don't
And yeah,
necessarily, you're the one-stop shop for that. That's cool.
yeah. I mean, that's how I kind of, for any other agents on here too, that's part of how I do my networking with other agents is, I'm here to be a resource for you. I have the real estate chops in the background there, but also the renovation stuff. So, you know, if anyone here is local in South, I think this is the South Jersey group. Is that correct that we're kind of chatting with today? So
Yes.
if there's anyone from South Jersey that, is local and wants to kind of connect around how to practically, make these things, come to fruition, or I think Heidi, we've had a pretty good working relationship with our project so far with turnaround time for estimates and even the work. I think it's funny. I think normally you said you're typically hounding renovators for updates on the project, and we were kind of the opposite. So,
Yes, no, you guys were amazing. I will tell you
so
that David's company was extremely professional, finished on time, did an insane job on the ones that I've seen. So yes.
yeah, that was a great project. We actually just did some marketing photos and video for that, just playing catch up on old projects. But yeah, that was a good one. And it was the case where I'm sure the agents on the line kind of have this where it's you have a family who's looking for maybe a new home or maybe staying where they are and making improvements. And that was exactly the case for this family in Medford. They were thinking about leaving the neighborhood they loved or doing an addition and figuring out how that was all going to work. And so the costs actually worked out just fine with an ARV for adding square footage, adding bed, bath, that sort of stuff. And they were able to stay put, stay in the home they love, and just make it a better place for their growing family. So it's a really good solution.
Yes, very good. Well, thank you, David.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So David, thanks. Linda Adams is on the line, posted in the chat. She's looking for good contractors, so I can send an email and connect you guys so that you can talk to her.
That would be great. Appreciate it.
And wanted to leave everybody with that. Going through this process, you're going to maybe think of some scenarios or some buyers you've been working with that you might take a different approach with this year. Please feel free to introduce them to me through an email, a text, a phone call. I can talk to them and tell them about the program, figure out if it's right for their situation, introduce them to Heidi, do the consultation, see what they're approved for. If you have a listing that's sitting and you want to do some marketing around that where it might look different, show the visuals, etc., let me know. If you've had a listing that's sitting, you've had many people come through and the feedback is that it's outdated or it's not big enough, maybe going back to those agents that brought the buyers through and saying, hey, there's a loan product that my lender at NFM has that could solve that problem. So we could make something happen on this listing. So
Oh, and if you do that, I'm going to interject really quick. If you do that, it would be awesome as the listing agent. If you're approaching like buyer's agents, or even if you're a buyer's agent, pull as ARV comps. Like just look for those updated houses and just say to the buyer, we can make it look like this, and then look at what your value is going to be. So it really starts to like gel in the buyer's head. Also a good way to check to make sure we've got the ARV that we need. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, Dana.
no, that's all good. Just wanted to mention that the process for how does a client find out about this is just introducing them through an email to me, and then I can follow up with them and give them good customer service, hear about their situation and try to figure out if that's a good product for them.
Very good. Well, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you, Dana, for having me. I appreciate it. I love working with you and your team, so I do appreciate it. And I will follow up. You'll get the PowerPoint to throw out to everybody, and it'll have the links to all the stuff that I talked about for marketing for listings.
Awesome. Thanks,
All right.
Heidi.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, bye.